introducing yourself, how you find yourself as a partner in Promise, and your your journey with the special education and EFMP life.
I became involved in Partners in Promise due to my involvement in Marissa Norman's special education battles against Virginia Beach City Public Schools. I represented the Normans in various complaints. We had numerous Virginia Department of Education state complaints. We had 2 due process complaints, one which we filed and one which the school filed against Marissa. And then also I represented them in the federal court appeals that were filed both by the school district since the Normans had won both cases. It's been a very incredible journey with them, and it's been wonderful to get to know Michelle. And one thing that I had always noted was that she seemed more than just your typical parent, meaning a lot of times, parents are very, I just want to take care of my child and then move on. But Michelle had a vision for more, and I became very interested and excited with her vision for military children with special needs, because I myself, we're an Air Force family. My husband is a chaplain, lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force, and we have a child who actually now is technically an adult. He turned 18, but because of his disabilities, he is still both developmentally as well as a little bit physically much younger than 18 years old. He recently graduated, but let me tell you, it has been a very long, sometimes traumatic journey, both for myself and for my son, Josiah. Education is difficult when you have a child who has unique requirements in order to even access the education. And so my journey for Partners in Promise, in essence, started many years ago. I mean, you could say it started when my son was first diagnosed. He was pretty easy diagnosis, is evident from the start. But in terms of the struggles,
when you say easy, you say easy to diagnose, not
yes,
not that it was an easy diagnosis. It was something that was straightforward. There wasn't, like, as compared to a diagnosis perhaps of
learning disability, which he also has. No, Josiah, from I think which sonogram, for him it's more trying to remember how early on in the pregnancy we were aware of issues, but for him, he was in the neonatal intensive care unit for almost a month. And they sent him home with a terrifying monitor with all these things attached to him. So we knew from very early on that Josiah would have some unique challenges. He has an autism spectrum diagnosis, but he is on the more high functioning side. He also has various neurological, it's all neurologically based, but it's interesting because it has impacted his coordination. He has he's a very difficult time crossing the midline of his body and remaining able to kind of order his motions. He is weak, he has hypotonia, so his muscles are very weak. He tires easily, even sometimes sitting up, at a desk is challenging for him. He has dysgraphia, which is a disability in the area of writing, both in the act of writing as well as in the process of writing. He also has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It's kind of fun. I love him. But it does make life very challenging for him. He can't even remember to, turn the stove off after he makes himself a quesadilla. He can't remember to close the front door. Our front door is perpetually open. Things like that. So with the autism spectrum, the hypotonia, and the related coordination, muscular coordination issues, as well as the learning disability, he has the attention deficit. He also has other neurologically based just communication, aphasia. You have a very difficult time understanding what he says because of some oral motor weaknesses he has. So Josiah's needs are pretty much global. I mean, they're across the board. But at the same time, he is high functioning enough that it's been doable, if that makes sense, working with the public school. We haven't had to fight for a private school for him. Well, one thing is that I feel very strongly about is this. As a parent, it's very difficult to feel like you're understood, or you do tend to feel isolated and alone sometimes, even if you're in a group, because your kids' needs are so unique. I would be as involved as I possibly can in groups like Partners in Promise, and other groups that are actively looking to solve problems and not just to complain. Because when you're a part of the solution, it is very empowering. And I have found a great deal of just encouragement and hope in dealing with issues directly for families and working with them towards solutions. I found that the groups that tend to complain more and to attack more don't work for those solutions as well. So I would say that it's really important, your community and who you find around you to talk about your, first of all, find that community. Second of all, really look towards hope. There's always hope. There is always hope. Even when it seems like, oh my goodness, my child is going to be left behind and he's never going to be able to speak. You know, he can't even tell me he loves me. It's heartbreaking, I know, but there's always hope. I have a close friend of mine who's also an Air Force spouse whose child, doctor said he'll never speak. He's nonverbal autistic. Well, you know, he says he loves her. He says, Mommy, I love you. And it's just the most beautiful thing. So I always say, hold on to hope, even when you've been told it's hopeless. I was told my son would never walk. He walks. I mean, not great, but he walks. So there's always hope. And please surround yourself with other hopeful people. Realistic, of course, but hopeful. And I think Partners in Promise is a great example of a group of very hopeful, forward-thinking, special education, military families. We know that there is a potential for solution. We know we can make things better for our children, and that's what we're doing. So that's my, I guess, last word of encouragement.
Thank you for being one of the founders of Partners in Promise, and for adding your expertise as a special education attorney to this conversation, but also just sharing your personal stories, which that's, you know, what we're here about, just to kind of elevate those stories so that we can better educate our community as to the needs that are being faced by our EFMP families and our children who are in special education. And we really just thank you so much for everything you do for the organization.